Okay, this is part 2 of my famous guy here that's just on the street in Fredericton. How you doing?
I'm good, Charlie.
Listen,
Yep.
you are one of the best to ask questions with these politicians.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
How long do you take to ask these questions? I mean, do you
mean to come
all
up with
day?
the questions?
Yes. Do you study all day?
Well, I think anybody who's asking questions for a living should spend a considerable amount of time thinking about what the questions are that need to be asked. Some questions, I guess, come to you easily, and others take longer. I ask other people what kind of questions they want to have asked as well. But it varies from situation to situation. Didn't have a lot of time today in talking to Premier Graham because the deal only happened at 11 o'clock this morning. It's going to take a long time to actually get through all the details and figure out what's really in there. So,
who's the best person you ever interviewed in your life?
I guess that depends on what you mean by who's the best.
Comical or you?
Well, Howie Mandel, I interviewed him. He's extremely comical. I don't know if that was the best interview I ever did, but it was probably the funniest one. I've interviewed a lot of people, and I think that, really there are a lot of people in politics and public life and in the arts and in education and so on. And they're good interviews. They've got good quality answers, and they're serious about answering questions.
Who's the worst one?
Oh gosh, I don't know. There've been a lot of those that weren't too good either. A bad interview is an interview that doesn't produce good information for the viewer. Sometimes if the interviewer asks the wrong question, if we're asking the wrong questions, then we're not going to get the right answers. And sometimes the answers are just vague. But I'd leave it to my viewers to decide which have been good and bad.
Steve, I got to ask you this.
Yeah.
I was disappointed. Was sort of like a hero of mine. Do you have any opinion on what Mike Duffy did?
What Mike Duffy did?
You guys were the best.
Well, and Mike Duffy was and is a friend of mine. I've known him for a long time. I don't think that Mike Duffy was doing anything to shill for a Senate appointment. I think that Mike believed that Mike would be a good senator whether he was appointed by Monsieur Chrétien or Mr. Martin or by Mr. Harper, who did appoint him. And I think Mike had a real sense that he could offer something to the country through the Senate. I think fair-minded people can debate the merit of the Senate, and I'm not going to get into that now. It's too complicated to do on the sidewalk outside the departmental building. But I do think that Mike feels that he can make a contribution in the Senate, and I would leave it to others to decide whether his contribution is valid. But the idea that he was shilling or trying to distort his coverage to get an appointment, I don't believe that of the man I know. And again, maybe my opinion has been tainted by knowing him for so long.
Do you think it hurt other journalists?
Well, that's a good question. Can you go from being a journalist one day to a politician the next day? I think maybe it makes people wonder about the business of journalism and whether people in journalism are looking for something else. And I think the answer to that is that probably some people in journalism are looking for something else, but some people in almost every walk of life are probably looking for other opportunities. So again, I wouldn't want to judge all journalists by the actions of anyone, for sure, or by any one blogger.
How did you handle the Stéphane Dion thing? Was that an experience?
Oh yeah, it was an experience. When you say how did I handle it, I guess the answer to that is that I didn't really handle it. It was just, it happened, and people can make up their own minds about what happened. I do have some concerns about what certain people believe.
Tricky question.
Well, we can debate what's a tricky question, what isn't. But I think if it really came down to a question for some people about about whether we planned to bring this man down, obviously I think everyone knows. I think anybody who thinks about it seriously knows there was no intent there. So the answer I guess I give you is that people can make up their own minds, and be careful not to believe everything people have said about that or anything.
Last question.
Yeah.
Are bloggers journalists?
Well, yes, I think blogging is a form of journalism. I've never been a big fan of the word journalism in the way that we've used it in the modern sense for a couple of reasons. Journalism, began as people keeping journals and writing down information, and technology has now allowed people to share information in other ways, which you do on your blog, which we do on TV. And it's journalistic. It's journalistic in that we're trying to tell people what's going on and give them a point of view. But I think we're all in the news business, the information business, and the current affairs business, and to me there is no doubt that what you do is part of that. It's part of a new wave of that. It's the Wild West of journalism, if you will. But it doesn't scare me, and I look at your blog and I think what you're doing has value, and that's as simple as that. I wouldn't do a thing to shut down blogging. In fact, I think we're going to see more and more of it.
Thanks a lot, Steve. We'll have to do this another time.
Again, good to see you.
You too.